High Arbiter Zolneth's bioluminescent crown flickered erratically as emergency klaxons echoed through the Galactic Council chambers. In her 3,000 years of service, she had never witnessed such chaos. Representatives from 843 star systems filled the amphitheater with a cacophony of panic transmissions, desperate harmonics, and what could only be described as species-wide existential dread. Order. ORDEER. Zolneth's voice boomed through the neural amplifiers, her authority circuits burning hot with effort. The emergency session will commence. The massive holographic display at the chamber's center materialized, showing the current crisis in stark detail. 17 human colony ships hanging motionless in space, completely surrounded by the combined galactic fleet. 200,000 vessels, representing every major military power in known space, their weapons trained on ships carrying a mere 38,000 human civilians. It should have been the fastest surrender in galactic history. Instead, it had become the most terrifying standoff the galaxy had ever witnessed. "Status report," demanded Zolneth, her primary manipulator appendages trembling with barely controlled anxiety. Fleet Admiral Vextorian materialized via quantum projection, his usually composed demeanor replaced by something approaching panic. "High Arbiter, the humans continue to ignore all surrender demands. They're not even responding to our communications. Have you attempted the standard capitulation protocols?" "Every single one," Vextorian replied, his biomechanical voice crackling with static. "We've offered them generous terms, relocation to comfortable reservation worlds, guaranteed survival for their species, even autonomous governance under Council supervision. They haven't acknowledged a single transmission." Representative Quindal of the Ethereal Collective raised her gaseous form. "Perhaps their primitive communication systems are incompatible with ours." "No," interrupted Dr. Kethmara, the Council's chief xenopsychologist. Her tentacles writhed with agitation as she accessed her databanks. "Our linguistic A's have confirmed that humans understand our communications perfectly. They're receiving every word. Then why aren't they responding?" demanded Chancellor Mordok, his crystalline structure resonating with confusion. Dr. Kethmara's chromatophores pulsed with deep concern. "Because they fundamentally don't understand the concept of negotiation as we practice it." The chamber fell silent, except for the harmonious breathing of the assembled delegates. Finally, Zolneth spoke. "Explain." "Every species in the galaxy operates under the same basic principle," Dr. Kethmara began, her voice carrying through the neural network to every consciousness present. "When faced with overwhelming force, rational beings seek the best possible outcome through compromise. We've built our entire diplomatic framework around this universal truth." She manipulated the holographic display, showing psychological profiles of various species. The Drachnari negotiate through displays of honor. The collective consciousness of Zirion negotiates through logical algorithms. The hive minds negotiate through queen node consensus. Every species has a negotiation protocol because survival requires adaptation. "And humans?" prompted Zolneth. "Humans appear to operate under a completely different paradigm," Dr. Kethmara replied, her tentacles coiling with anxiety. "When they believe they're morally correct, they simply don't negotiate at all." Fleet Admiral Vextorian's projection flickered with disbelief. "That's impossible. Every intelligence must have some mechanism for—" "Admiral," Dr. Kethmara interrupted, "have you reviewed human historical conflicts?" The display changed, showing archived footage from Earth's ancient wars. Images of armies fighting to the last soldier, civilians choosing death over surrender, entire populations accepting annihilation rather than compromise their principles. "The Siege of Masada," Dr. Kethmara narrated. "Rather than surrender to Roman forces, the defenders chose collective suicide. The Battle of Thermopylae 300 Spartans facing certain death against impossible odds, fighting anyway. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, civilians with improvised weapons attacking a mechanized army. More images flash by, soldiers in frozen trenches, pilots ramming their aircraft into enemy ships, protesters standing motionless before advancing tanks. Every species has survival mechanisms, Dr. Kethmara continued. Humans have something else entirely, ideological structures that supersede survival instincts. When they believe something is morally non-negotiable, they become literally impossible to reason with. Representative Thexmar of the Draconian Empire spoke up, his scaled hide shifting to worried purple, but surely the presence of their young aboard those ships would compel. Admiral Vextorian, Dr. Kethmara said quietly, "Please share the intercepted internal communications from the human vessels." The chamber's audio systems activated, broadcasting translated conversations from inside the colony ships. "Daddy, why are there so many alien ships outside?" "Because they want us to give up our freedom, sweetheart. But there are so many of them. Numbers don't matter when you're right." The audio continued with similar exchanges, parents calmly explaining to children why they wouldn't surrender, elderly humans sharing stories of ancestors who died rather than compromise, teenagers volunteering for combat positions despite having no military training. "By the Void Mothers," whispered Chancellor Mordak. "They're going to fight. All of them, even the children." "Not fight," Dr. Kethmara corrected grimly. "Die. They're going to die rather than accept what they consider an unacceptable outcome. And they're completely at peace with this decision." The chamber erupted in panic transmissions. This scenario existed in no diplomatic playbook, violated every principle of rational behavior, and suggested a species so alien in their thought patterns that standard first contact protocols were completely useless. "What do they want?" Zalneth demanded. "Every species wants something. What are their terms?" Fleet Admiral Vextorian checked his data streams. According to their single response to our diplomatic overtures, their terms are "leave us alone. Forever. Non-negotiable." "That's not a negotiation," protested Representative Quindal. "That's a unilateral demand, with no room for compromise." "Exactly," Dr. Kethmara replied. "Humans don't negotiate when they believe they're morally right. They state their position and refuse to budge. Ever." "So what do we do?" asked Chancellor Mordak, his crystalline form resonating with barely controlled panic. The chamber waited as Dr. Kethmara processed the question through multiple psychological matrices. When she finally responded, her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. "We leave them alone. Forever. Because the alternative is the first genocide in galactic history committed against a species that will sing songs while we exterminate them." As emergency sessions erupted across 300 star systems, the humans aboard their colony ships continued their journey through space, completely unaware that they had just broken the most fundamental assumption underlying galactic civilization, that everything eventually could be negotiated. The age of universal diplomacy had ended with a single word: no.